crisis. People waiting far too long for sometimes incredibly urgent care that they need, often when there's risk to their life. And it might be child and adolescent mental health services. It might be the crisis service down at what we have as the Bradgate ward here. Or it might be other mental health services available in the community. They just aren't there. And I think that's a really important starting point for our young people when we're talking about our youth, because youth mental health is in crisis. And I'm so proud that Labour is going to invest properly across all of those areas. But when I talk to young people, I'll let you into a secret. I've got to talk to lots of young people, get them to vote for me, and that's how I win this seat, okay? So I talk to lots of young people. And mental health is a key aspect of what they talk about. But there's a broader pessimism about the future. They know what's going on with our climate emergency, and they're worried about it. They're worried about the future of marginal countries, low-lying countries. They're worried about the future of the environment globally. And they know damn well what's going on and that we need to act urgently. But they're also pessimistic about the debt they're going to come out of university with, average of £44,000 worth of debt. They're also pessimistic about their housing prospects for the future, the jobs they're going to do. And the sad thing is, many young people out there, they don't see a way forward. But that's why I'm so proud to be standing on a manifesto that contains ambitious Green New Deal, creating, as it will, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of green jobs. Not just for people that come to universities like this, but to young people that will go to the college over the road, and young people that won't have a university education through our 320,000 climate apprenticeships. People are also worried about the UK being cast adrift as a result of this Brexit deal. Many didn't get to vote in the referendum. That's why it's so important that we offer them this referendum, this chance to have a say on their future. We need to get rid of that £44,000 debt. That's why our tuition fees offer is so important. We need to give them a chance to get affordable housing. That's why 100,000 of council houses per year are required as a matter of urgency, and that's why Labour is going to deliver that. So the message to you all is big thanks for coming. I get it, you didn't come to hear me speak. But this is our people-powered movement in action. We have Jeremy Corbyn coming today. And let's be honest, he's the guy that enabled this level of ambition in our policy. And we need Jeremy Corbyn in number 10. From services through to child and adolescent mental health, all the way through to the stuff we're going to do on housing and everything in between. We only do that through knocking the doors, getting the leaflets out, booking the 12th of December off work. Because let's be honest, it's going to be close. This is one of the closest seats in the country. The road to Westminster runs through Loughborough, so please come back and campaign for me to be the next MP for Loughborough. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for those three amazing speeches. How great to hear about what a green industrial revolution will mean for young people, and to hear the absolute courage of our postal workers around the country, and also what a Labour manifesto actually means for the people of Loughborough. So the next speaker we've got is the East Midlands community organiser, who is going to lead you in some member mobilisation. So this is Bilal Hussain.
Brilliant, thank you. Hi everyone. So today you're going to be hearing from the leader of the party, and you've just heard from the PPC. But really, what the two things that make our movement really special are our platform and our people. And I think that if we can get our platform and our manifesto and our agenda to as many people as possible, then we will win. And if we can utilize our people to the best way possible, that movement of 500,000 people, then we will win. Right? So this is the participatory bit of today, which obviously everyone loves. And I'm going to be asking you to do things, but I'm going to be asking you to do things on two specific points, which are our policies and your stories. Right? So, okay, cool, that didn't work. Can I get the next slide, please? Brilliant, thank you. Yes, the next one. That one, there you go. So look, so what I want you to do is, look, we have one of the best manifestos that anyone has ever seen in the history of our country, in the history of the world, in the history of ever, right? Yes, yeah, whoop, whoop. Brilliant. And so we're going to be talking about how to share that manifesto on the doorstep. So what I want you to do now is you're in rows of like 4 or 5, and then those that are around the outskirts, I want you to just like sort of huddle together, caucus, and just get 3 or 4 people together and just list, maybe on your phone, or if you've got a pen and a piece of paper, just list your 5 favorite points from the manifesto. Right? And I'm going to give you a minute to do that. If everyone does that now, that would be brilliant. No, that doesn't work. That's not going to work. Do you know it?
Remind people about the competition as well, because I feel like people don't have enough time to like do it because they're in here. Do you know what I mean?
What's the competition?
So like we're getting people to do the voter reg challenge,
Okay.
and then the best 5 we're picking. So it's the 15-second voter reg challenge telling.
I'm gonna ask you for people's feedback. Okay, so I'm certain you've got an exorbitant list. So now what I want you to do is all those who are able, if you could stand, please. I'm being serious. Stand. Yeah. And now, if you can speak to the person next to you, right? So what I want you to do now is turn to the person next to you, and I want you to allocate person A and person B, right? Person A is going to be speaking first, person B is going to be listening first. And what you have to do is you have to pick one policy, right? Person A has to pick one policy from your list, and you have to explain it to person B, but the catch is you've only got 10 seconds, okay? So, and I'm going to be recording, and I'm going to be timing you, and I'm going to only give you 10 seconds, and I'm going to be shouting when to start and when to finish. Okay? So, have you allocated who's speaking first? Yeah? All the shrewd ones will be person B, because then you get a bit more time. Okay. So on the count of 3, we're going to start. I'm going to time you, and then I'm going to say stop when the 10 seconds is finished, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to switch around, and then person B is going to get the same thing. 10 seconds to share your favorite policy from the manifesto. Is that okay? Nods? Yeah? Enough nods. There you go. So, 3, 2, 1, go. Stop! 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 Easy enough? Okay, cool. Now, person B, pick your favorite policy, and then the same thing. Okay? 3, 2, 1, go. Could you row? Stop! Stop! Yeah? Okay, well, I gave you 0.33 of a second or more there. So you know what I mean? Now we're going to do it one more time. So person A, pick another favourite of your policies. I mean, there's only a bit in there, so you've got a bundle to speak from. And then the same thing, okay? 3, 2, 1, go. Laura, can I ask you to vote? Okay, stop! Brilliant, 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 brilliant. And now, person B, your turn again. So, same thing, 10 seconds, favourite policy. 3, 2, 1, go. Stop! Stop! Stop, stop, stop. Okay, cool, now you can sit down. Way, there you go. Seats. Clap for sitting down. So, if I can ask Laura to rove, put your hands up if you want to speak. How did you find that? Go down there. Oh, please don't say that was terrible.
That was quite interesting. I thought it was a good exercise. I work in education, so this kind of stuff is like second nature to me.
Brilliant. Did you talk about education? Did you talk about education?
Yes, that was the one I picked, funnily enough,
Cool.
the National Education Service.
Tell us your 10-second spiel.
So the National Education Service is about making sure that we have a fair society for all and making sure that teachers have better mental health.
Stop. No, joking.
Done.
No, I'm joking. Wonderful. Right, anybody else? Who picked something that wasn't education? Yeah? Go for it there. Sorry, man. A bit of a lag for the microphone gets you.
Did you put your hand up?
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, go for it, Marco.
Sorry, I didn't see
Yeah, no, go for it. Go for it.
So £10 an hour minimum wage.
Yeah, what
Young
did you say?
people should earn the same as everybody else, and the wages have been stagnating for far too long, and they're the basics of any good standard of living.
Right, last one.
So the broadband policy about giving free broadband to
Broadband
everyone.
communism.
Right, absolutely. That's right.
Love it.
I work in
That's precedent.
I work in selling broadband every day, and giving it to everybody that hasn't got it at the moment is a fantastic idea, and we should really follow it up.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, does anyone know, or does anyone want to venture a guess why we give only 10 seconds? Just shout. Amount of time you have on a doorstep? Good one. Not a lot of people will care for. Attention, there you go. It's as if you've done this before. So there's been oodles and oodles of research. Apologies, I can't quote you on this, but the average attention span on the doorstep is 10 seconds. Does anyone want to know what it is online? 2 is 3 seconds online, right? So look, the point of this exercise is to teach you guys that, look, you don't need to know everything about a particular policy. Right? You don't need to know that the National Care Service is going to cost how many ever billion. You don't need to know how many people the government department is going to employ. You don't need to know every nook and cranny of their employment details. You don't need to know what wages they're going to be on. You don't need to know the management structure of the National Care Service. You don't need to know any of or a lot of that minutiae. But what you do need to know is just key points. 2 or 3 key points and 2 or 3 key selling points for a particular policy that you can just not shout to someone, but that you can give to someone on the doorstep. Because, yes, sir, you were right. We don't really get that much time. Are you cold? Apologies. No. I wasn't going to chastise you for putting a coat on. Apologies. But look, you are right. A, we don't get that much time on the doorstep. Right? We simply don't. Right? Some people just are really busy, and sometimes they can't listen to us for that long. But also, they won't listen to us for that long because the human condition means that they only get about 10 seconds anyway. And all they're really looking for are those key headline points that make them want to vote for a particular thing. Right? And look, one of the other things is that it is really, really okay to say that you don't know about a particular thing. Right? Because everyone knows that political parties knock on doors, and everyone knows that the people in political parties that knock on doors are volunteers. right? We are not expecting you to swallow all 107 pages of the manifesto and the accompanying book that has all of the numbers in it. I mean, I am, but the party doesn't. And people will give you that bit of grace. And when we're talking about policy on the doorstep, everyone will give you that little bit of grace. All you need to know is that there are key selling points, right? It's okay to say that you don't know, and it's okay to say, look, I don't know about your particular question on this really obscure policy in our manifesto, but what I will do is I will find out. And then that is a brilliant reason for the candidates, Stuart, who is here somewhere, to go back and say, look, you are asking one of our activists about a particular policy. I'm here to explain it to you. By the way, would you mind voting for me? Right? And my God, who wouldn't mind voting for Stuart Brady? Lovely, lovely man that he is. So look, that's the policy bit. Now, I'm going to go on to stories, but before I do that, I've been told to remind you about the Register to Vote challenge. Right? So what we want you to do is, we want you to do a 15-second selfie of...
Do you want me to explain
There
it?
you go, yes please.
So it's just a reminder, when you have a few seconds, is to film yourself for 15 seconds, telling people why they should register to vote, the website they should register to vote at, under the hashtag, "The future is ours."
Wonderful. So please do that. So now, that's our platform. Our platform is a massive, massive, massive benefit of ours. And it's a selling point, and everyone will understand it because it gives people hope and ambition, right? But then the other thing is our people, right? And this is a massive pet peeve for me, because I think that we are a movement that is based on people, but we don't utilize the full power and the full capacity of our people well enough, because we don't share, next slide please, at some point, there you go. We don't share our stories well enough on the doorstep. And that is something that is really, really easy and simple to do, right? Because what we are brilliant at, and like lefties in general, we are amazing at giving people a list of everything that is wrong in the world, right? Well, education's wrong, health is wrong, like sitting down is wrong, people's like hipsters are wrong, everything is wrong, and Jeremy Corbyn will sort it out. But what that does is it doesn't connect with people, and it doesn't connect with people's experience, and because it doesn't connect with people's experience, they don't understand it to be something that they need to act upon, and that they can act upon, right? And so because we don't share our stories, they share our stories for us. And one thing that we do not want is we do not want the opposition defining us, right? Because they will tell everyone that we are the most terrible people, right? And Boris Johnson does this all of the time. He talks about our movement and how we're all sycophants to Jeremy Corbyn, how we're all broadband communists, all of this kind of stuff. They define us, and if we're in that situation, that's a bad situation, right? In 2017, Ben Bradley, boo, Ben Bradley, Tory... There you go. There you go. Ben Bradley won Mansfield, right? It was one of only 6 seats across the country that we lost. And Ben Bradley won Mansfield because he told Alan Meale's story in one line. And he said, vote for me because Alan Meale doesn't care. And I'll tell you why he doesn't care. Because he's only mentioned Mansfield 3 times in Parliament in the last 10 years. Right? And then from there, he used that to say, I will care about you. I will mention you loads more. Right? And he effectively told Alan Meale's story. And now what I want you to do is I want you to effectively tell your story on the doorstep. Because look, we are 500,000 people, right? Every speaker that has spoken before me has mentioned the power of our people. And the power of our people is shown to other people on the doorstep through your stories. Right? So tell people why you get engaged. One of the things that I love telling people is the story of how I got political in the first place. Right? And that starts when I was 17. I was a 17-year-old lad. I'd just passed my driving. I'd got a really flash car because I'd been saving for ages for one. And I'd been stopped by the police. I was on Ilkeston Road, if any of you know Nottingham. And I was stopped by the police. I got out of the car, and the police officer said, look, sir, I've got to stop and search you. And this was before we knew the racial aspect of stop and search. And I knew that by that time I'd been stopped and searched 2 or 3 times. So I went up across a wall, and I put my hands up, and he stopped and searched me. And he goes, young lad, step aside so I can stop and search your car. And I was like, okay, cool, whoa, wait 1 minute. So you can stop and search me, that's within your powers, but I think what you need in order to stop and search my car is a warrant officer. And he giggled and he said, okay, cool, we've got one of those. And so then he went to his car, he got a pen and a piece of paper, he wrote warrant on a piece of paper, he came out of the car, he gave it to me, and he goes, there's your warrant, now step aside so I can search your car. Right? And I tell people that I didn't choose to be political. Being brown, being Muslim today has made me political. Right? I have no choice. Thank you. Thank you. Right? Can I get the next slide? Now, look. Now, if we dissect that story, it comes along this line, right? So there's a character. I am my own character. Right? People can identify with me, especially if I'm in sort of like BAME areas, they can identify with that. But obviously, if I'm door knocking in Nottingham, I'm a Nottingham lad. I was born and bred in Nottingham. Right? If I'm door knocking in Loughborough, I'm from the same region as them. Right? We need to give people someone to identify with. Right? That moment, the bit that people remember. Madam, when I said the warrant story, you physically like opened your mouth and you gasped, you touched your chest, right? Because it was a visceral moment that got to you. And that's the bit that people remember. We need to share moments, right? There's an action in it. So when you're sharing your story, the action is evident. You're going to be knocking on people's doors. People will know that your story has led to you knocking on their door that day. And there's a moral, right? A story teaches people about how the world is, right? My story teaches people that racial discrimination exists, right? And it also, if you want to extrapolate further out as well, it also teaches people that powerlessness exists. Because I don't usually share this bit of the story, and I'm about to do it with press in a room and hundreds of people looking at me. But as a 17-year-old lad, I genuinely believed that a warrant is a policeman, and this is laughable, writing on a piece of paper warrant, and he has the magical powers to make that a legally binding document, right? I was not well versed in the law. Right? My father worked in a foundry, my mother worked in lace. They weren't lawyers. I didn't know about any of these things. Right? So it shares that story of powerlessness. And so what I want you to do now is, look, you are our strength and you are our power. When people talk about people power, they talk about 500,000 people who have these experiences, who go through these things day in, day out. These are the people who are downtrodden and who are doing something about that. Right? So share your story and share it in that sense. 2 rules. You cannot give me a list of issues. Right? You cannot tell me that education is wrong, all of these things are wrong, and that's why I'm involved. That might be true, but think of those moments where you realized that our education service needs to change. Think of that moment when the NHS became pertinent to you. Right? I care about the NHS, and that's why I'm involved in politics. But I care about the NHS because the NHS saved my nephew. My nephew was born 2 weeks premature, right? And he had to be put into an incubator. And right now, like, I'm an uncle, not a parent. So this is okay. He's my favorite nephew. So the NHS saved my favorite nephew, right? And I'm not going to say, look, the NHS needs more funding because loads of people are being like our health service is suffering because of it. I'm going to tell people that we need to save the NHS because the NHS, midwives and doctors and nurses saved my nephew, right? They incubated him when he couldn't fend for himself. So please, turn to the person next to you, right? Share a moment, no list of issues, and share that one thing that you saw that made it political for you. Share that one thing that you've experienced that made it political for you, right? So turn to the person next to you and just buzz for the next 3 minutes and share your stories, please.
Like 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing that.
Oh, okay, done after this. Do you need me to?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, 1 sec. Did you find it? A stand. Does Jermaine want one? Just check. And where is he? I want a stand. Okay to hold the mic. Yeah, I didn't know if you. No, I know.
Can I take a photo?
Of course you can, man. Yeah, go for it. So they're just all sharing their stories.
Okay, lovely. Quickly, do you know where Jeremy's room is around here?
I have no idea, man. I'm not organised.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, if I can bring you back, please. The shrewd amongst you will realize that wasn't 5 minutes, but that's because I go on a bit sometimes. Who heard an interesting story that they want to share with us? Yeah, over there? If I can get a mic to you, please. Go for it, sir.
Hi. So Avery here told me about their partner who was born in the USA, has lived here since they were 5 years old, but they're not eligible to vote because they're not a citizen. So Labour reforming electoral rules so everyone who is a resident can vote is really important to them personally.
Right, brilliant, right? And there's a clearly defined character there. My partner has lived here since we were 5. Yeah, 100%, 100%. Apologies. I kind of forget the applause stuff, sorry. So can I go to the chap right there? Brilliant, though. Clearly defined character, people that someone can identify with. Lived here since they were 5.
Hi there. Talking to the gentleman next to me, I'm not going to say too much because I think it's quite a personal story.
No, that's fine.
It's about the fact they've been street homeless and how much the policies about housing and about mental health and social care and all of these kind of things, it really drove that home to me. So I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go now. But look, please do consider coming out and knocking on doors with us. It is the highest form of political engagement, and also you have, and I promised that I'd mention her, you have one of the best organisers in the country right now, a woman called Heather Warman, who is right at the back over there, right? If you don't want to go out and knock on some doors with Heather Warman, there's something wrong with you, not everybody else. So please do feel more confident in sharing policies on the doorstep. And don't be afraid to get personal. I mean, there's a problem with getting private, but there's no problem with getting personal. Please do share your stories, because you are our strength and our platform is to walk forward. So please do remember that. Come out on the doors with us, and I'm going to hand it over to someone who you're more likely to hear from. Go for it. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you so much, Bilal. It's great to have interaction, so people aren't just speaking at you, and what the community organising unit are doing in every region, mobilising members and also getting to know people in the community who aren't members is so important. So contact your local community organiser if you want to get involved with that exciting new bit of the Labour Party. So the next speaker we have is a very special guest who is a ardent supporter of the Labour Party and was the winner of The Voice. So I'm proud to introduce Jermaine Jackman.
Good afternoon, everyone. That's right. Firstly, I
Oh, you get a new mic.
Microphones each. Microphones for the many, okay? Thank you very much. Thanks for all being here today, and thank you for your support for Labour in this campaign. This campaign is reaching every single part of the country. I've been to many, many constituencies already, and I'll be going to many, many more in the last 2.5 weeks of this campaign. We've got 2.5 weeks to get people registered to vote within the next couple of days, and then to make sure that those votes are cast for Labour on December the 12th. 9 million people, as of yesterday, had still not registered to vote. So please put all the efforts you can into giving people that chance and that choice on December the 12th. If they're not registered, they won't be able to exercise their right to vote, to get rid of a government committed to austerity and inequality and impoverishment of the people of this country. I've just come from Sheffield this morning, and yesterday, as you know, we had the debate on Question Time, which I actually enjoyed very much indeed. Because I'm very, very happy to take questions from anybody on anything, anytime, any place. We have nothing to hide. And this morning, I went to a warehouse in Sheffield, alongside Forge Masters Steelworks. That warehouse is owned and run by Amazon. Outside the warehouse, there was a line of white vans, self-employed white van drivers hoping to get some delivery to do that day from the Amazon warehouse, if the Amazon warehouse had deliveries for them to do. They were queuing up, hoping for a day's work. The people in there packing the goods and sending them out were on 0 hours contracts. They spend their days looking at their mobile phone, working out if they're going to get a job or not that day. You'll have read from history and from older people what it was like to work on the docks in Liverpool or London or Hull or Felixstowe or Harwich, when dock workers had to go down to the dock every morning and see if an employer would offer them a day's wages. Building workers who used to queue up in Birmingham or London or many other places every morning, hoping a contractor would give them a day's labour, and then at the end of the day, drop them back to wherever they'd picked them up from, maybe get a job the next day, maybe not. Totally insecure, but very, very hard work. And of course, those that stood up to organise workers on the docks or the building trade to be in the union didn't get work. They were discriminated against by very powerful employers in the sense that the employer controlled the livelihood of those workers. Union action, the labour movement, changed a lot of that and gave people rights at work and some degree of regulation in their workplace. But the growth of 0 hours contracts, which now affect nearly 1 million people across this country, in reality, it might not be as uncomfortable sitting at home looking at your mobile phone as it was queuing up outside waiting for work. But the principle is exactly the same. You're completely disempowered. You're completely in the hands of an employer who might like you or dislike you, may or may not give you work, and you have no control over that situation whatsoever. So I was very proud to be down there this morning outside the Amazon warehouse with our friends in the GMB who are doing their best to organise Amazon workers to join the GMB, to end the contract culture of 0 hours and give them rights at work. Now, I support the GMB and all other unions that are trying to organise people at the workplace. Of course I do. But I also think we need government action. We need parliamentary action to change things. That is where the election of a Labour government comes in. And bear in mind that one of the richest people in the world is the chief executive of Amazon, not just a billionaire, a multi-billionaire. And the tax arrangements of Amazon and many other companies are not so much not transparent as and even opaque or even completely hidden from view, are that many of these companies operate in this country, make a lot of money in this country, then transfer their tax liability, as they would call it, to a low tax regime somewhere else. I just make it very, very clear, under a Labour government, there's going to be a few things done differently. One, we will end 0 hours contracts, end of story. There will be no more 0 hours contracts. There will be guaranteed times. Secondly, every worker will have full rights at work from day one of their employment, not having to go through these very lengthy probationary periods where they cannot access employment tribunals or anything else. And then, for the companies concerned, yes, we want the work. Yes, we want the jobs. Yes, we recognize that retail habits have changed and warehouse facilities are a factor in our economy. But we also recognize that companies making money in this country should also pay tax in this country. So we will end the non-dom status. We will tax people at the basis where they're making the money, and the ideas that it's clever to avoid and evade tax and place yourself in a tax haven somewhere else. With John McDonnell as Chancellor, those days are going to be over. We're going to tax people fairly. And this is not for the avoidance of doubt anti-business. Because if you're a small business operating on a high street, a small manufacturer, a small artisan workshop or warehouse, you're paying your taxes, others are not. And so we're not going to be raising taxes for the small businesses. We are going to be raising corporation tax for the biggest businesses in order to pay for the social changes that we believe are so necessary in our society. And I'm very proud of our manifesto. I'm very proud of the grey book that goes alongside it. We have a fully costed manifesto which will change the lives of a lot of people in this country. And I'm very proud of the work that's gone into all of that. And I thank all the people for that. But this election is all about really the future and hope for young people in our society. There are many things in our manifesto, and I'm really grateful to Young Labour, to Momentum, to all the unions, to everybody else that's made a contribution to our manifesto. And so, whilst brilliant people in our office and our teams wrote the manifesto itself, in reality, the ideas came from the real experts. People working in factories, people's care workers, nurses, doctors, teachers, teaching assistants, road sweepers, everybody made a contribution to our manifesto. It's a people-powered manifesto for a people-powered party in a people-powered campaign to win this election. And so, Cat Smith and I tried to get an amendment through Parliament on the very last day when the election was being called. And we were supporting the call for an election because no deal had been taken off the table. We put down an amendment to include votes at 16 in this. We were not successful at doing that, but I'll be proud to lead a Labour government that gives votes at 16 throughout the whole country. And I'll also be proud to lead a government that establishes a national education service that properly funds our education system. Because it can't be right that children that get preschool nursery facilities get it on the basis of, to some extent, need, to some extent of parental ability to pay, but it is a patchwork across the whole country. All the evidence shows that children that get nursery opportunities do better later on and better later on in life. Let's end the postcode lottery on educational achievement and give every young child a real chance and real achievements. And let's have real parity of esteem, real equality of opportunity, whether you undertake vocational education when you go to college and go on to do advanced apprenticeships and get great experience and qualifications that go with it alongside academic education in universities. A society needs qualified practical engineers just as much as it needs scientists and others within our society. They're both part and parcel of our lives and our society. And the short-sightedness of charging university fees of £9,000 a year, the short-sightedness of ending the nurse bursary, the short-sightedness of ending the support system for people to be at university means that we have 40,000 nurse vacancies within the NHS. We have a massive shortage of doctors, and every company all over the country tells me how difficult it is for them to recruit skilled workers because we're not training enough people. We're not giving young people those opportunities. And so our National Education Service will ensure our schools are properly funded, will ensure that our apprenticeships are effective, good quality, and people are properly paid whilst they're doing them. Because we need those people for the future, and we need to give young people that sense of hope and opportunity for the future, rather than being told, if you want to go to uni, you're going to get into debt. If you want to get good health care in the future, think about going private. The idea that the public realm is somehow or other permanently in retreat, whilst we are the 5th richest country in the world. Our manifesto, the whole thread through the manifesto, is about changing the inequalities and injustice that exist within our society. And so we will also raise wages, because people need a wage rise. Ever since austerity came in 2010, there's been a wage freeze for most of that time in the public sector. There's been a wage freeze in a lot of the private sector. The spending power of most working class communities is 25% less than it was a decade ago. And so I have no compunction whatsoever in saying we will introduce a £10 an hour living wage for all workers, including young workers, to end that discrimination. To end that discrimination against young workers, because this election is an election about hope for the future. And I want to say thank you to all those that have joined the Labour Party, that have come in and registered to vote, and are doing such a fantastic job in this campaign at the present time. The campaign is being framed as the Brexit election. In reality, of course, that is a factor in it, but it's also about health, about housing, about education, about environment, and about hope for the future. Our government will give people a choice for the future, a choice of the kind of government they want, a choice of our relationship with Europe in the future. But what we will not do is allow this country to fall into the arms of a so-called free trade arrangement with the United States, when the United States government itself has made it very clear that any trade relationship with Britain in the future will require American companies to have access to our public services, including our National Health Service. I just make it very, very clear, for the want of any doubt anywhere in this country or around the world, under Labour, our NHS is not for sale. Because our NHS is one of our proudest achievements, the principle of free health care at the point of need. None of us want to be ill. None of us want our friends, family, or relatives to be sick or ill. But the difference between here and the USA, well, the USA, just like here, nobody wants to be sick or ill. But when you go to see the doctor, when you go to the A&E department, you're not worried about your bank balance. You're worried only about your health, and that's how it should be. But if we carry on underfunding our National Health Service, underfunding our mental health services, underfunding our social care, then people will either go without or be forced into private provision. Well, under us, we will invest fully in the NHS, fully in social care, and fully in our mental health services. And I'm proud of what our manifesto says about all of that and so much more. The injustices of universal credit, the injustices of the way in which young people are treated in our society, and often their needs are ignored, is something that has to be addressed. So it's not just about funding schools properly. It's also about the after-school clubs. It's also about having sufficient teaching assistants in schools to help those that need special help and assistance, and reducing the numbers of students that are excluded, often because the school can't cope with the special needs of some pupils. We have to be there for all pupils all of the time. And we need a youth service worthy of the name around the country. How depressing it is to grow up in a society where people are always talking of what it was like. Yes, there were those libraries that were open all the time. Yes, that swimming pool used to be really cheap and open 7 days a week. Yes, those sports facilities used to be affordable. Oh yeah, we had a really good youth centre down the road. When you go down a high street in some parts of the country and all you see is closed and boarded up shops and closed public facilities, and you realise what the price of austerity is. The price of austerity is not paid by the billionaires who've had tax write-offs and tax relief over the past 10 years. The price of austerity is paid by working class communities all over this country with the loss of resources, facilities, hope and opportunities. Our job in this election is to do it differently, saying no more austerity, tax fairly in order to pay for the services that are needed for everybody else, to unleash the hope, the experience, the optimism of the next generation to bring about a future that's good for all of us. And I'm very proud of what our manifesto says in all of those regards. The greatest issue facing our planet is obviously the climate emergency. And I was very proud on May the 1st to propose to Parliament a motion to call on the UK Parliament to be the first in the world to declare a climate emergency. I proposed the motion. I proposed the motion on behalf of the Labour Party, and I was very proud to do that. Michael Gove got up to oppose it on behalf of the government. He spoke in great and enormous length, he always does, and two things came out of his speech. One was, he doesn't like me one little bit. I don't do personal, so I'll say no more about it. But he also had no arguments against it. He couldn't really summon up an argument against it. And so we did declare it. But declaring a climate emergency is one thing, dealing with it is another. And so we put a lot of work into this. A lot of people have put a lot of work into this. The Green Industrial Revolution, very similar to the Green New Deal being produced by AOC and Bernie Sanders and others in the USA. And we're in touch with them and working with them on our plans and our proposals. Broadly speaking, it goes like this. If we don't get to zero emissions, net zero emissions very, very quickly, then we're contributing to global warming in exactly the same way as other countries are. And so our manifesto is very determined and very ambitious in that respect. But it's also about how we don't use it as a means of destroying jobs, we use it as a means of creating jobs and economic opportunities. Think about it. If you're retrofitting homes in order to make them sustainable and make them energy efficient, there's a lot of jobs involved in that, a lot of very high-skilled jobs involved in that, both in fitting and in manufacturing. If you're producing electric vehicles, electric trains, if you're electrifying lines, then there's a lot of very skilled jobs involved in that. If you're rolling out broadband across the whole country, free broadband for everybody across the whole country, you're opening up the opportunity of new employment chances in areas of the country that are remote and have been left behind for a very long time. And if you're generating electricity by wind, wave, and solar, you've got to manufacture the wind turbines. You've got to build the wave-generating power stations, such as the Swansea Bay Tidal Lagoon. And you've got to manufacture the solar panels. The opportunities and the chances of all this are absolutely enormous. It's not going to be done on its own by the private sector. They will never do that on their own. It is about public investment, and it is about providing the opportunities for new companies to develop as well, to develop all of this. We calculate around 300,000 green energy jobs will come in, and we will be introducing green apprenticeships so that the future is one where we protect and sustain our world, but we also make sure that there are jobs there, efficient jobs there for the future, that are decent, well-paid and high-skilled. And I look forward to leading a Labour government that on the world stage will be a voice for climate sustainability, We'll be a voice for fair trade around the world so that we don't inadvertently export pollution by having tough regulations ourselves, but importing goods from places where there are no regulations at all, knowing full well the damage we're doing to that environment. And so a Labour government's voice on the world stage will be one to say that the biggest threat facing this planet is actually climate change. Therefore, we have to do everything we can to recognise the contribution made by industrial countries to the climate emergency and recognise our responsibility to lead the way in changing the way that we do things. There are environmental refugees around the world, just as there are refugees from human rights abuses and wars. We have to be sensible, realistic about this, and I want to lead a Labour government that will go in all of those directions. Because our job is to face the future with confidence. Our job is to face the future with the policies that I believe we've developed, which will meet that future. We have now just 2.5 weeks until the election itself takes place. Are we to go down the road of more austerity, more tax giveaways to the richest? There's 150 billionaires in Britain, and so far only 50 of them is funding the Conservative Party. I don't know what's happened to the other 100. They obviously must be incredibly mean people. They should be funding the Conservative Party because the Conservative Party is certainly funding them. And unfortunately, all my fundraising appeals and all my fundraising efforts on behalf of the party haven't brought one penny in from any billionaire, and I'm really sorry about that. But I'm very proud that the average donation given by our supporters and the public is £25. I'm more proud of £25 from people that want a Labour government because it will deliver for them. And so, when we go out there campaigning, it is about asking people how they're going to vote. It is, of course, asking them what they know about our policies. But it's also engaging in that debate and that conversation, because that's how we develop the policies we've got, and that's how, in government, we'll sustain that government with all the attacks and all the pressures it's going to get from those that wish to retain their special status and their privilege in society. Our manifesto is about the empowerment of ordinary people, unleashing that sense of hope amongst young people and the optimism that goes with it, and recognise those that went before, that won the right to vote, that won the right to free education, that won the right for women to vote, that won the anti-racist legislation that successive Labour governments have passed. A Labour government that will deliver for all people in the future is a prize within our grasp. But it's not going to be handed to us on a plate. You've seen the attacks we're getting in some of the billionaire-owned media at the moment. You've seen all that stuff that's thrown at us. But I tell you what, don't do personal, don't reply, just relentlessly go out there with the policies we've got, the determination we've got to put them into operation. And then, in the cold misery of a wet November and December, you'll get a red Christmas and a great spring with a Labour government. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I got a mic. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn. Oh. Well, Jeremy's got to rush off because obviously we are in the middle of a general election and he's on the campaign trail. But I've invited all the speakers to come on the stage and we're going to take a selfie with all of you. You're already standing. I was going to ask you to stand, but you're already standing. So if Jeremy and the rest of us have our backs to the crowd, and I want you to all say...
It's only briefly while we turn our backs to you. Okay. Is he a great singer? Brilliant singer.
Labour government by Christmas! Jeremy, look. No, it's really hard to get the...
Thank you very much. Don't be afraid of the rain. Just go and knock on the doors, okay?